Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. We are talking about something that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people. We're talking about how to agree to disagree when you're under extra stress, which a lot of us are right now, circumstantially, and things are feeling really high stakes. So I think a lot of people are struggling to agree to disagree, but are really wanting to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is one of the things that's broken down the most in my experience. Like I think people are describing it like, "Oh, we're bickering a lot, we're fighting
Hmm.
over silly things, there's just like a lot of tension going on." But I think at the
Hmm.
base of many of those conflicts, it's this issue.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Um, I keep seeing this in couples where it's like things just feel negative, like, but not explosive necessarily. But it feels like there's this like low grade chronic conflict, and what it does is it. What I'm hearing a lot is the word unapproachable,
Mm, mm-hmm.
right? Like, I can't bring this to my partner because we're not going to agree.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't have to agree. You can still bring it to your partner, but this is where people feel like they can't
Mm-hmm.
get to agreeing to disagree because it's going to lead into conflict because there's so much extra stress.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of like I'm walking on eggshells around them.
Hmm.
I'm hearing a lot of that. And I mean, look, agreeing to disagree regularly is not easy, right? It's not the
Hmm.
easiest thing. But right now, with the extra stress of coronavirus and everything, all that comes with that, especially here in New York, it's to another level.
Hmm.
And, like you said earlier, this is when you're under stress, but also when everything feels high stakes. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of what's going on is because we don't have control of so much, so
Hmm.
much outside of our house, so much with work for some people, with health for some people, with family,
Hmm.
then we try to hyper control what's going on in our house.
Hmm.
And it's like everything feels like a big deal because so
Hmm.
much is a big deal right now. So we just get
Hmm.
really like entrenched in our position on issues of things that normally wouldn't
hmm
be so big.
hmm And sometimes I feel like what's behind that is just like a need for validation and connection.
Mm-hmm.
But what it comes down to is feeling like um, if my partner doesn't agree with me on this, then we make an invisible rule.
Yes, yes. Then we're going to have a
L-
fight. Then we're going to be tense. Then we're not going to talk tonight. Then
mhm.
I'm going to be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. And I feel like the invisible rules are running rampant right now.
For sure. For sure.
So I think that really like bringing back that skill of agreeing to disagree has a lot of value
Mm-hmm.
and can actually get you to that place of understanding, validation, empathy, which is what so many of us are really longing for right now, even though we're not necessarily putting those words to it because
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to put those words to it.
Yeah.
So let's get to the nitty gritty.
Mm-hmm.
How do we agree to disagree when we are feeling extra stressed?
I think I guess the first step is to manage your own emotional self, right? Manage your
Yes.
own emotions, your own central nervous system. Like you have to come into this conversation from a calm, balanced place in order to be able to even start. So,
Hmm.
going for a walk, taking a shower, taking a bath, doing some push ups, right? Like something to get yourself grounded, doing a meditation, thinking positive thoughts, doing a gratitude journal, like something to get yourself to an okay place before you approach your partner.
Yeah, super, super important.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think when we come into situations with anxiety, hostility, stress, that translates into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I think that's an extra important thing to be aware of right now is that our feelings come into conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And when we don't manage our feelings, the likelihood, like if you don't name it, you don't tame it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is what the journaling really does. We have a great resource to that. It's the bonus from episode number 9, the guided journal entry to manage my own hard feelings. So definitely download that. That is your step one. And I would say that's your step one in having a lot of challenging conversations right now. This is really like a great daily journal prompt for people to be using because there's a lot of hard feelings that need to be managed right now.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely download that. And once you do that, then you can approach your partner from a calm, relaxed place, right? Gentle
Hmm.
start up here. But I
Hmm.
think the second step is to really know that the goal of this conversation is understanding, not persuasion, right?
Hmm.
John Gottman.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John Gottman. But yeah, like if your goal is understanding, the outcome is irrelevant, right? The outcome or
Hmm.
the agreement or disagreement doesn't matter because all you want to do is understand.
Hmm.
And that's super important.
Hmm. This is where you go back to loving curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is where you go back to, I love this person. I love my partner. I want to like, and a part of loving someone is knowing them and understanding them. And us disagreeing is just an opportunity for me to more deeply know them
Mm-hmm.
and more deeply love them, right? And I'm not saying that as some like cheesy quote. I'm saying that because one, there's research around that, and two, because it's true. Like if you see couples that are really good communicators and have a really deep connection, they're very, very curious about each other. They
Mm-hmm.
don't dismiss each other's opinions, even if they disagree. They have that genuine curiosity. They ask open ended questions. They don't interject their opinion. They really give the platform. They ask follow ups. They're not afraid to go to a place of like, well, do you think this ties to this point in your history or this
Mm-hmm.
point in your history? Like really showing the connection. Um, and then, like you said, the outcome is irrelevant. It's more about learning and understanding, and that's what agreeing and to disagree really is.
Yeah, definitely. And there's not a whole lot more to it than that, right? It's communicating in the same way that we encourage you to communicate all the time, but it's I think the key piece is the goal being understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage you, if you haven't already listened to episode 1, Communication That Actually Works, go back there and listen because that's going to give you the just basic foundational communication strategies. And then specifically for today's topic, episode 5, we have a bonus, the win win end to an argument guide. This is going to walk you step by step through the agreeing to disagree process. But, I think the next hot spot in this conversation is okay, so I'm calm. We talked about it for understanding. Then what? Like, how do you do, Marina, the actual, okay, so we agree to disagree? Like, how do you do that?
I think sometimes you can just say it, okay, so we've agreed to disagree. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just like saying, like, we've gotten to understanding today and like, let's sleep on it. I mean, this is where it's really important to realize it takes time to digest information
Mm-hmm.
and not every conversation needs to be done that day.
Yeah.
Um, but you've gotten to this point where you've gotten to understanding. I think you have kind of two paths you can take. You can either say this is our point that we get to, and whenever we have new perspectives we bring them to our partner and give them more understanding and get more understanding, or we can say like, what do we have in common and how do we translate that if there needs to be some sort of like action step or anything like that taken,
Mm-hmm.
how do we translate that into a temporary compromise?
Yeah. Yeah. So focusing on where you're aligned, what you have in common, what you share, and being willing to work within that.
Hmm.
And again, like the goal is not to persuade the other person to see it your way. The goal is to understand where they're coming from, how they feel, what they
Hmm.
need, and then put all of that together and figure out something that could work for you.
Hmm.
I think I'm just thinking back to when Tom and I have these conversations. I find sometimes, and maybe you do as well, like at a certain point in the conversation, we're just kind of saying, we're like, yes, I understand what you're saying. And I feel blah, blah, blah. And you just sort of start going back and forth, like reiterating the reiterating the same thing over and over, not in like a critical way, but just in like
Hmm.
a I don't really have anything else to say because we keep coming up against this like
Hmm.
one
Hmm.
disagreement,
Hmm.
and saying it again and again is not going to change that. So like that's the
Hmm.
point at which we could say, we're not going to obviously we're not going to see eye to eye on this and that's okay.
Hmm.
Like let's
Hmm.
go do something else.
Hmm. And I think the important thing with walking away from that conversation is to not put any meaning
Mhm.
or create any invisible rules about what it means that you disagreed on that one topic.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because that's where the long-term damage really happens. And like if you guys want an example around this, it's really like, let's say George and I don't agree on, you know, what we should be, what we should be prioritizing in terms of savings, like if it should be saving in order to do one thing or another, right? We may not agree on that. We can walk away from a conversation saying, okay, we don't have an agreement, but I understand where he's coming from and I feel very well understood. And that's fine. The issue comes in when I walk away or he walks away going like, because he doesn't agree with me, it means he thinks I'm stupid or he doesn't think I know what I'm talking about or he doesn't respect my, um, like what I brought to the conversation or he doesn't want to collaborate with me, right?
Mhm.
Like putting any meaning on it
Mhm.
that wasn't there, that wasn't blatantly like expressed, like that is where the damage happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's really, really important after the conversation to check in with yourself
Mhm.
and see, am I creating some BS invisible rules here?
Yeah. I love that point. So keep that in mind. And I would frame it like, don't be afraid to frame a conversation as like agreeing to disagree. I
Mm-hmm.
think to give that phrase some meaning, right? Give that phrase that's an end point, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we agree to disagree, meh,
Mm-hmm.
it's just an end point.
Yep.
And how do I say this? Like to get yourself in a calm body and a self-aware enough state for agreeing to disagree not to feel like a risk
Mm-hmm.
or to feel like a loss, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's agreeing to disagree.
Yep.
And we hope that's helpful. We'll be back next week with another episode to help you during this challenging time with coronavirus. And we'll see you then.
In the meantime, slide into our DMs. Let
Mm-hmm.
us know what you need us to talk about.
Yeah.
Let us know if you have questions. We are more than happy to answer them.
Yep. We're at Simply Great Relationships on Instagram. We'll see you over there. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye, guys.